meeting called to order. I'm not sure if this, we've been away so long. Is that clock fixed yet?
No.
Okay.
It is not.
Somebody announce an hour, please.
6:59. So, this is my apple.
Got the clock is not right.
7 o'clock.
It's a little fast.
Oh, that's a lot fast. Let me know when it's 7 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. How do you like the view? 7 o'clock. Call to order. Roll call.
Chairperson Akers,
Here.
Commissioner Rodzik present, Commissioner Meeson,
Meissen, present.
I'll get it. Commissioner Pennell,
Present.
Commissioner Kappa,
Present.
Commissioner Lyons, present, and Commissioner Bronkowski. Here. And Planner Schaefer.
Present.
Okay, just for a point of clarification. Commissioner Lyons, is that what we call Lyons, or do we call you friends of
We can call
Lyons?
me Lyons.
Just Lyons, okay. All right, public hearing, there is none, so we pass that. Approval of the agenda. I'd like to make a couple of additions. Under communication, correspondence, and workshop, on the communication, we need to tighten up the emails and telephone number things, because right now it is disjointed. So I'm going to send around this list, and during the course of the evening, if you could put your correct email address and the telephone number that the office can reach you by, that would be very helpful. So that would be 6A. And then under matters for discussion, President Dilbert. And the rest would be handled by the planning. Those are the only changes I have. Does anybody else have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda with corrections.
Second.
Motion has been made to approve the agenda with the corrections and seconded by Commissioner Radzik. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. You should have the minutes in front of you from the last meeting. July the 5th. We've been away. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I don't know, maybe it should be one of the two of you make the motions, since none of us have, we're actually here to, unless somebody was visiting July 5th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You know, I do have one question, which has nothing to do with the vote, but we approved the little daycare center. Did it ever open? I did a couple of drive-bys afterwards looking for it midday. I don't see the indicators that used to be there. I thought we approved it. But we're in the,
Yeah, we did.
I believe she's operating,
Oh, okay.
just from my observance in the neighborhood.
If she's doing it right, you shouldn't notice she's there.
Right. She had, you know, she used to have those little slow down.
Oh.
And I have those people. Yeah, those little folks saying slow down and stuff, right? And I just don't see it anymore. So, okay. Communications correspondence and workshop, the list is going around. Rhonda wanted me to ask, did anybody have any problems with giving an email and a telephone number?
No.
Okay.
Do you want it on the website?
Not my phone number.
Does anybody, I'm just gonna not put anybody's phone number on it.
Okay.
I'm good with my email.
I'll email.
Yeah, if the planner's not on the website, that'd be great.
Oh, your number's on there.
Is it?
Yeah, it is now.
I don't know which number I gave you. This is call Jeff first.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Is
concerned
that a
about.
motion?
You want to check it?
Yeah,
because that's, yeah, that was very good.
So I have a question for Suzanne. So the village does not offer dedicated emails for us?
Not for us.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Mhm.
Because I don't want to put something out there and have it change.
You know what,
You make it up.
I'll change that email address then because it's my work email address. I don't want it, I'll give my personal one. If I could change that, please.
Me personally, for things I do, I make up an email for it so that it's segregated, like Commissioner Pennell. And various things that I do so that I'm not looking at, that's just me, but
Right, but if it's going to be public, I don't think it should be my Macomb County email address.
no,
Change that.
you'll be first one there.
So I'll change that if you don't mind.
Okay, so we'll just send that back down.
Thank you.
And you and Rhonda work something out so that she can get that from Okay, matters of consideration. There's no old business, new business. Salvage Rescue Yard, Mr. Dan Crest. May I refer, hi Dan,
Hi.
you kick this open for us?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess we don't really have anything on our agenda indicating why you're before us tonight, so if you want to give us a rundown and give us a...
My name is Dan Crest. We have a piece of property right next to Basic Metals, between Basic Metals and the railroad tracks on the north side of 26 Mile Road. And I'm just seeking the signatures that I need from the village, from my state of Michigan, dealer's license, scrap, and salvage license, so I can conduct business.
So you're looking for, what is, the state is requiring a sign off?
I need a dealer's license,
Mhm.
and I also need a salvage recycling license.
Okay. The questions I guess I would have related to the property in relation to this matter is, have all the citations and issues with the DEQ that have been
Yes,
with the property
I'm
been
under
resolved?
consent, yep, I'm under a consent order with the DEQ.
Okay, would that be something to be able to provide the village with, the paperwork or
I can
documentation?
talk to my attorney, I mean, I don't see a problem, I don't know if it's a public record or not, but I'd be happy to show it to you or share it with you.
Is there a point in time where you're looking to, what exactly is the nature of the business that you're looking at?
I'm looking to operate in the same capacity as Basic Metals, scrap metal, salvage metal, wholesaling and traffic off the street.
Okay. And then I think there's also the only other question I had was a matter of any of the delinquent tax. Are there delinquent taxes or on the site at this
No,
point?
I think that there's just the 2017, I think are all that's owed right now.
That are still past due,
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, I could check, but
Yeah, I think-
it's not in jeopardy or anything.
No, it's just something we normally would check to see if.
Yeah, I could
current
I could satisfy
tax. I
that's
know
not a
there-
problem.
There were delinquencies on the property in the
Yeah.
past.
That wouldn't be a problem.
I don't know what the protocol, to be perfectly honest, with this type of request is. Generally, to operate in that manner, a special land use is required for the heavy industrial district.
Yeah.
Special land use application is something that's applied through at the building department
Yeah.
with Laura.
And as I pointed out at the council meeting, my neighbor, Basic Metals, my corporation sold Basic Metals their property in 2009, I think. And they're operating without a special land use. And I made that known to the village as early as March 12th, 2013. And no enforcement action, nothing was ever taken. So they're operating without a special land use, and I'm looking for the same consideration.
I can't speak to that because I wasn't the planner here. I'm just here to
I
interpret.
understand.
I'm just here to interpret the zoning ordinance. Under the current zoning ordinance, in the heavy industrial district, which is zoned there, transfer of waste, the hauling of waste, the licensing of the type of facility that you're talking about is permitted. It is, but does require special land.
Yeah, it's the same thing. When they started in their operation, it was the same ordinance, and they got Jamie Kincaid to sign their state licensing forms, and they've been operating ever since.
Okay.
So I'm just looking for the same consideration.
I understand that. I don't think that's something that this body can give you tonight.
Okay. No, I was surprised to see myself on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was mentioned at the council meeting, but I checked the website and I saw myself on there, so I thought I should come and address any questions or concerns.
I think the best place to start is with the building department in that process, and then we'll also, as my recommendation with this matter would be to also talk to the village attorney about moving forward. Because there has been a considerable amount of concern about enforcing ordinances within the village, and this would be one of those cases. So,
Okay.
however they recommend.
I mean, I told the village council, Richmond Salvage did the same thing where they went to open as a salvage recycling yard, and they got cease and desist. When I first bought the property 20 years ago, something shortly after that, I got a cease and desist because I wasn't conforming to the ordinance, but somehow Basic Metals has skirted through all this time and is thriving. Our past village president works for them. As a matter of fact, just a couple months ago, represented them in a matter so far as purchasing my property.
Exactly.
So it's common knowledge that they're operating without a special land use, yet they're allowed to operate without a special land use, and you're asking me to get a special land use, and I don't think that's fair.
I'm just making the.
No, I'm not arguing with you, I'm giving you a little bit of history, because
No, I understand.
maybe you're not up to speed, but that's as simple as that.
Okay, I have a question. Dan, you've already been before the council.
Yes, sir.
How is it that you end back here?
Somebody put me on the agenda here, Mr. Dilbert
I
said I need to
refused
start.
to address the issue, and I said, your first stop needs to be planning.
I'm
So-
sorry, repeat that, Mr.
He had come to council meeting last month,
Uh-huh.
seeking a signature for some permit. And he started telling me the story about what happened during the previous administration. And I think I said something to the effect that two wrongs don't make a right. So if Basic is operating wrong, I'm not going to sign a permit for him so that he can operate wrong. So his first stop needs to be here to make sure that all the zoning and special land use and all the other things are in line before we
Before we bring it
grant
back.
that, yeah.
Mr. Kress, if I could,
Yeah.
forgive me because I'm very naive, first night at the planning commission here. Is there a reason why you wouldn't want a special land use permit?
Because with all the special land use, there's a site plan, and all the rules and regulations that apply that Basic Metals doesn't have to comply with. I just want the same treatment.
It's a little
Yeah.
more work for you to have to do to get it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and I've been there 20 years, so I've heard them throw around the word grandfather, they're not grandfather. The corporation that I now own sold them property back in 2008, 2009. It's sold to an entity that leases to Basic Metals, and so it's the same situation. I'm a tenant on my property, they're a tenant on their property. They're allowed to operate as a scrap and salvage yard. They've got the appropriate licensing signed by Mr. Kincaid, and I'm just seeking the same treatment within the village. And there's been no enforcement action against them. We brought to the attention, like I said, in 2013, and so I'm just looking for the same consideration.
I can definitely say that since the village council meeting, I've been working through the channels to try and see what we can do about Basic Metals, but that's another subject.
All right.
It has been raised to the attention of the council. We are working through it.
Sorry, what's the address of the property or the address?
It's 29901 26 Mile Road.
299.
29901 26 Mile Road. Both parcels were identified as that address prior to selling to Basic Metals, so mine, I would imagine, goes by parcel ID. I mean, we shared the address for a number
Yours
of
is
years.
the pie-shaped one.
Yes, it was on the railroad.
Okay. Is there access from 26 Mile?
Yes, I've got a dedicated 50-foot ingress easement for utilities, and it's 50-foot ingress, egress, and for utilities off of 26 Mile. It's a deeded easement across their parking lot.
Okay, all right.
It's not visible, right?
What's that?
That you're-
My lot, no, it comes to a point. It's pie shaped, it comes to a
Yeah.
point right at 26
Yeah, I was
Mile.
scared at that point. I was driving, trying to see what we were talking about.
Yeah, it's, so you can't see anything. It's 31 acres, goes all the way back to the foundry.
You can see if you go satellite view, you can see it.
Yeah, all the way to the power lines. I go from all the way from the power lines to 26 Mile Road, between the railroad tracks, and, that property line, Basic Metals, that goes along Spartan Excavating and all the way back to the old Amick farm.
So is there, I'm just looking at this satellite view, could be from 20 years ago, but is there ponds on the property, or is it just?
There's a man-made pond towards the center of the property. In the rear of the property, I'm getting runoff from the Amick farm as well as the New Haven Foundry. I don't know when you moved to the village, but around 1999, the EPA made the New Haven Foundry cap their pile of waste sand with 18 inches or 16 or 18 inches of clay and then 8 inches of topsoil, so that when it rained, the water wouldn't go through the contaminated sand or contaminated sand, whatever they want to call it, and into the groundwater. So they had to make diversion berms and plant grass so the water would run off and not go through the pile. When they did the engineering on it, if you look at some old maps, we have something called Fish Creek in the village of New Haven. There's the east branch and the west branch. The east branch starts at the rear of the foundry and goes across Gratiot, like behind both employees. And then the west branch of the Fish Creek goes only dead south to the railroad track. What has happened is when they did the capping of the pile, they closed off. There's no longer a north branch of the Fish Creek on the west side of the track. So all that water you see at the back is seeking out,
Low spot.
seeking out the other Fish Creek. I've already talked to Miller's office because you have to maintain your own groundwater. It can't. The water from your gutters can't go across your neighbor's yard and accumulate in their backyard. You've got to handle your own groundwater. So if you see any water at the rear of the property, that's being addressed currently.
So that's, when you say Miller's Farm, is that the farm that's
Amick
west?
Farm. Amick Farm, you see the large pond?
North of the
There's a large pond behind the power lines.
Okay.
That's the corner of the Amick Farm. Yeah. And what that pond is, it was a borrow area. When they capped off the New Haven Foundry sand, they dug a tremendous pit for the clay to cap the pile off, and since filled up with water. So that's the low point of the Amick Farm. All the water comes, everything from Greater New Hope Baptist, that whole farm comes to that rear corner because it used to seek out across the railroad tracks, and now it's seeking across my property. So that's something that the property is going to have to take care of.
Mr. Press, are
Yes.
you willing to apply for a special land use?
If enforcement action happens with Basic and we both start from the same spot, but otherwise I don't see why I have to be
I'm
treated.
just going to share from my perspective, just kind of, I know if that's all the case, and I'll assume it is, because you're sharing it, it was done wrong. But I do agree with Mr. Dilbert that going forward, I think we're trying here as a community to make a direction to do things right.
Oh,
And so I respect the fact of what you're up against and where you're going. I guess I would encourage you to.
Well, I mean, if
Start that
somebody opened
process.
a pub or a bar and they were operating with a fraudulent license or a license that didn't go before the council, before planning, you'd shut it down in a second. If Rizzo, rather than come before board for the special land use, if they just started using the property as a landfill, you would have been on them immediately. This has been going on since 2013. I made it
And
known
I recall
on
you-
multiple occasions.
I do recall you coming in.
Yeah,
saying
and
that.
and for some reason, they get to operate with a special land use. So
I
I'm
think
looking for
we're
the
trying
same,
to make it right.
but nobody's trying to make it right. So No, I mean, Richmond Salvage got shut down. They got a chain put on their gate by Chief Henry, which had to be taken off because that was illegal, but they shut them down. I was shut down and taken to Macomb County Court, just like Richmond Salvage. Cease and desist. There was no, hey, you know, let's see if we can't get this straightened around. They shut them down, shut me down until we got our stuff correct. And they are getting special treatment.
Are we currently following up with the basic metals?
Yeah, I actually just got confirmation yesterday from our building department that they didn't have the special use.
Yeah, and they're still
So-
operating. They're gonna open their doors tomorrow and they're gonna make money.
The next step is obviously to get with our code enforcement and get them, involved.
Well, I can tell you, I used to be the code enforcement officer for Lennox Township, so it's kind of funny when you talk about code enforcement. Code enforcement just reports to the board and works at the pleasure of the board.
No.
And they
No,
identify.
you're wrong.
I'm just curious.
That's the truth,
You're wrong.
It used to,
Yeah,
Here in the village, you're wrong.
okay, so the code enforcement's above you,
The code enforcement works independently.
so he's above you,
No one's above me.
okay?
So, let's not go there. Okay, he works independently through the court system.
Okay. But the village attorney shut me down 19 years ago. The village attorney shut Richmond Salvage down and put a chain on their gate.
See, and that was going to be my question to the president, is the role that the village attorney had in this, because now we're talking legality.
It is, there's
Like,
a lot of it. I got all.
has it been before our attorney?
They've been made aware of it.
Okay.
And they're continuing.
I think the bottom line is, look, let's call it like it is. If he wants to operate legitimately, he will go through the necessary process and get a license, get a permit, irregardless of basic metal. That's a separate issue, okay? That should not be 95% of his conversation.
Well, if they want to operate, they should have the same thing.
That should not
Stop
be
tomorrow.
95% of his conversation. If he wants to legitimately operate a self business, go through the process. Period. And let basic metal be our problem.
Well, it's my problem because.
It's not your problem.
Yes, it is, because
You're
because I'm
using it as a
being
crutch.
treated differently.
Dan, you've been using that as a crutch for years, okay?
You've taken no action. I've done before you at least 3 different times.
I refuse to just sign off on a permit. And I said at the last council meeting, I will not sign off on a
So
permit.
prior to having a code enforcement officer, you took no action since you've been in office.
I certainly have not. I've had no time, and that's why the code enforcement has been informed of.
It takes me back to the daycare thing. It's funny that Jamie said at the last meeting, if you do it for one, you have to do it for all. As far as the daycare, if you get another licensing, I find that funny that they're very in this predicament.
Except she was compliant.
What's that?
She was compliant.
Yeah, but they're not. So, that's it. I thank you for your time, and I was surprised to see myself on the agenda, and I'm glad you took the time to talk to me, and I thank you for that.
are you open to a visit so we can see your property, what you're, so I can visually see what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I've got conceptual drawings that are being worked on. I'd like to show you that first, and then I can walk around and show you what I'm thinking.
Okay. I mean, I have to agree with, I think what the past is needs to be corrected. And I don't think it should give you per se a pass because they got a pass, but I think they should get fixed.
Well, I'm just
And you will
equal
get treated the
That's-
same way, they should get treated now the way you are being treated to bring them up to compliance. I mean, everybody should be treated, and we all know that things have passed, and there's a new sheriff in town.
There is no sheriff right now, because there's no enforcement station action. There's no enforcement being made because there's
But we
cease
have
and
a
desist
code
for me and cease and desist for Richmond, and they're gonna open their gates tomorrow morning. You're well aware of it, the council's well aware of it, and it just continues. You wanna talk about Macomb County corruption? That's a perfect example.
We do have a code enforcement officer on staff now, correct?
We do, and he's been working with multiple members of the council and the county and working through a lot of issues right now.
And they're still open their gates tomorrow.
I'm gonna forward something that I got from, Ben Kirkhoff. Let you know what the council is doing. There's a lot of paper, but it'll be in your box.
Any more questions?
No, I don't think anybody should get past that. Now,
Yeah.
think that they should be treated differently than you're going to be treated.
Yeah.
It's not right, that's not fair. But because it happened in the past, code enforcement has to get involved, and the process will have to start, which goes through the administration to correct. Which, I mean, I have a whole list of, I was a code enforcement officer for the village of New Haven, and things never got any farther than a desk. That never got.
Thank you for your time.
You're right.
Any other questions?
We are working through that.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matters for discussion, President Delby.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to see a full board. I haven't seen this many
Yeah.
people since
And,
last night.
is it-
Welcome to the new members.
Thank you.
And I will just take 30 seconds to maybe share with you the rationale behind all the new members. Well, the ordinance allows 7 members, and I think in the past we've been operating with 5. And with a couple resignations and whatnot, we haven't been able to see a quorum. I see some new friendly faces. And one of the reasons that I'm here is to encourage and to ask this board to take on some issues. We have a lot of zoning ordinances that are outdated. They just don't apply anymore. I just saw one about sidewalks, there's a complaint about someone driving their lawnmower down the sidewalk, and he gave me an ordinance, and I looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance talked about riding your horse, moving your cattle, and some other things. That's how old it is and outdated it is. In attending some other planning meetings in other communities, I've noticed that they consistently take on zoning issues. And I know that doesn't, which is a conversation that Jeff and John Paul and I will have, because I know that would change our contract with the county. But I'm all for that. Because we have a lot of zoning planning issues that need to be addressed. Right now, there are 2 or 3 trustees that are trying to deal with them, and it's just that there's so many. Now, there are some that will be probably handled by council because of the legalities, okay? But there are just some general planning issues that just need to be tweaked and updated and brought into the 21st century. And I would love for this board to take on some of those issues. While your plate is fairly empty right now, I think it's a good opportunity to take on some of those issues and to become a little more proactive. We need to get into how do we sell ourselves? How do we sell this village? Jeff had set me up with meeting someone in his office, and I never had a chance to get down there to actually talk to them. Just schedule just didn't allow it. But these are people that I know he has access to, who that he could probably invite out or whatever it takes. How do we sell our community? I mean, we have to become more proactive. Developers are not knocking on the door. Okay? So we need to open up that door. And we'll invite them in. And, let's not worry about dollars and cents, because it's going to pay for itself in the long run. Okay? So that's what I'm challenging the Planning Commission to step up, step out, and become the driving force behind what could happen and what could come to the village of New Haven. And I consistently say that no idea is a bad idea. Okay? You know, let's see what we can do, you know? And I know Jeff's gonna have his plate's gonna get full. And I would hope that it would get full. Because like I said, there are some issues out there that we need to address. And I'll work with the county, and I'm sure we'll adjust our contract accordingly. And so they're properly compensated for their efforts. And, you know, let's see what it gets us. You know, we have to spend $1 to make $1. So with that, it's good seeing all these friendly smile faces.
Just want to say, when this committee participated, and I gave the new people some documents, but you haven't seen the master plan and you haven't seen the Parks and Recreational Plan, which this committee led by Jeff pulled those documents together. When you read the beginning of the master plan, it's what you're saying. It presents the village. It's like a promotional discussion on the positives, what the future is going to be, and I get that. I mean, and that's what we have to do. But you would agree that it's twofold. It's not only updating, talking about process, but it's also about activity. Yeah, somebody has to be out there presenting it. And it's not something that you can do ad hoc. So I was wondering, you know, if the village is looking at it in terms of, I mean, this is something serious. I hear you saying readjusting their contracts. Are they hitting the streets, or would we be hitting the streets? Doing promotion, I mean, because it has to be.
This board with just input and direction would put together some sort of campaign.
Yeah, okay, that's the word.
You know, some sort of campaign. You know.
Would you look at our contract too?
If I can just get reimbursed for every dollar that costs me.
Go ahead.
The ordinance that you just discussed was rewritten. It was brought to council to approve just prior to me leaving.
Which one?
The sidewalk. It's funny that you made,
Well,
because there's even things mentioned about how far the hitches have to be for the,
oh, I didn't see that paragraph.
to hang the horse.
Stop.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so all that work has been done.
We have a sidewalk ordinance, but I constantly look at one pertaining to snow and ice and disrepair. And I said, and this one that was, you know, sent to me talked about the horses and whatnot, and of course I had to chuckle, you know. And I think I did see something about some hitches or something in there.
The prior board, from the time I've served previously, we went through the entire zoning book page by page and worked on section by section and meeting by meeting. So it's obvious that things have gotten lost
Something
over
yes.
time. So maybe a lot of that work is already done and completed and sitting in my basement.
Maybe that one document, but that's exactly what we did with the master plan. And Parks and Rec, there was no precedent on that, so that was more, you know, the leadership of the county. We created it to fit the village.
How far back does it go where the annotated markup of the zoning ordinance was done?
It was bringing it up to the standards of 2000 or 2010.
Okay. Yeah, there was a copy of that. That'd be a great,
That's-
that'd be a great starter.
Right.
I just recently cleaned, because it used to be the dumping ground, literally the whole office, you couldn't even open the door. So we've cleaned all that, and everything that said village on it, I dumped in a old paper type box, you know, and I got about 20 of them. So within those boxes is zoning stuff. So I will make an effort by next meeting to try and have gone through boxes and, because we've already paid somebody to do a lot of that work.
To give an
If you
outline.
have that stuff, that's great,
450-7.
because we have found some things that are missing.
It's-
Yeah, that are missing. Matter of fact, we're going through the old village hall, because when the move was made over here, everything that we're legally responsible to retain was not moved. And so we're going through the old village hall tomorrow, and we have a shredder truck coming out, things that we can get rid of, they will shred. But there are certain records that we must retain forever. And there are still some over there.
It's scary.
Because, that's a senior citizens meeting place now, and we're looking, we've got some volunteers that are gonna do some rehab in there, and we're going through the covers, and, hey, we can't, let's shut it down. Let's get the records that we have to retain, and let's get them moved over here, and, then we'll get rid of everything else.
Mr. Boyd, those, are you talking like the cabinets that were in the old office section and there were padlocked doors?
Mhm.
Now, those are all things that we tried to get, but at that time Brett wouldn't let anyone in those. So I don't know what's in there, but
There's some things that we need to retain.
I'd be careful about shredding anything that is a name attached to it.
No, we're going through it. No, the office staff, there's two from the office here, they'll be over there, and we're going through box by box, and the shredder company will be on site. And so we know legally what we have to keep. And then, the rest of it is, because it's just, there's a lot that was left behind.
Hopefully that'll help with our financial audits. Hopefully that'll help with our financial audits as well.
Yeah, there's some things that we're still missing in this building that we just can't put our finger on. Oh.
There's a lot of planning documents and plans that never made it to this building, maybe, and I always thought they would be in there, but we were never given access to those.
So that's
Any
my
more
challenge.
questions, comments from the table?
I just have a comment, and I'm inspired by your challenge for us, but I would ask that you go back to your council and let them know that, I feel very confident we have a group of people that want to follow the direction that you want to lead us in, but we really need the support, like with this basic metals thing, we're really going to need support on that.
That's how it is.
I know, but.
He will give the report, but I will certainly support
Right.
that.
We're going to need that kind of support because
Yes.
we have to have the confidence to, I can only sell what I know,
Mhm.
so.
And by the same token, we on the council will still continue our efforts, to promote the village, and if we come up with some bright idea, we'll make sure that we share them with you so that we're not in conflict, so.
I would even suggest that we have a place on the agenda where we make our recommendations to give them to Brian, so he has them officially on the record to take to council, that things that we're concerned and we think we need help with, or obviously budgetary items that he could take to council for us. And
That would be great.
Is there a commissioner report in your agenda now?
We'll make that a line item.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, when we were doing the master plan in Parks and Rec, it was a line item. We gave an update once a month. Jeff would come to the meetings and then I would do the report. But then after that was done, but it's so easy, to put it back in there. So.
Yeah.
So, sorry. So you'd like a section added to the planning agenda for to communicate with the liaison?
so we can all go through our
Okay.
our thoughts to give to Brian that we'd like to share.
Right, I think it's appropriate.
And I would encourage
I don't want to leave
members,
Brian to like catching stuff in the wind.
I would encourage members, if you have time, to come to council meetings. It's real helpful.
And I appreciate your challenge too and your support.
I look forward, because I think this, like I said, we have a nice broad group of people here You know, there's some fresh ideas, there's some old ideas, and I think with that mixture, I see you guys doing some good things, some really good things. And I look forward to hearing about them, and I certainly will support them. Because as you do good work, Brian looks good, I look good.
Any
If you
other
look good, the village must be looking good, right?
Thank you, you know,
Any other comments, questions, concerns from
and
the
that's the
president?
bottom line, building's looking good.
President Dilbert, for the village ordinance regarding the lawnmowers over the sidewalk, the individual that brought it to your attention, is he all taken care of? Or?
I don't think it'll ever be taken
Well,
care of.
I know.
That particular issue, you know, I even talked to the sheriff department, because he had called the cops on the one guy.
Okay.
And there was a difference in the stories. You know, the motor rider said that he threw a rock at him. You know, and the sheriff didn't see any issue with none of that. Okay? And then with the DPW driving the mower, I checked with Marcus, and that particular day, their trailer, which they usually use to transport up this way, had a flat. So instead of sitting around waiting for a tire to be fixed, they hop on the mower to come cut grass.
Right. So, unless there's multiple people with the same interest about mowers over the sidewalk, I think the same individual would reach out to me, so that's why I asked.
I think it's the same individual. I haven't heard from anyone else besides the one individual who wanted us to trap his groundhogs and
Sorry.
feel free to laugh.
Real quick before you leave, have you signed terms to all of us, time limits?
No, I have to get with the clerk because
Okay.
she has the actual list. And then I gotta say, you're replacing so-and-so. and
Right,
the term
I'm sure
expires.
it's kind of complicated, but I'm just curious.
Matter of fact, some of the terms will be extended because we only had a 5-member board. So there'll be at least 2 terms that will just be full 4-year terms, I think they are,
I think it's more than that.
6 years, something.
Yeah, that was about
Yeah, because the clerk still hasn't updated all the commissions, whether it's the planning or the housing, and she hasn't provided me with all the updates. Why you're not looking to get off sooner?
No, I'm just
Oh, okay.
trying to see how long my commitment's going to be. When do I need to re-up?
Is that it for me?
The fun
comments?
job about this is you don't have to run again. You don't have to run, you
Just got to stay in the good graces of the majority of the council.
just do your job. No, I don't even think it's that, I think it's you do your job, and I think that the respect will be earned on doing your work. I don't think we have that anymore.
Okay, any other comments, concerns, questions for the president? He's leaving.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Dilbert.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. President. Public comments on non-agenda items. Mr. Drake.
Hi,
Hey.
new members. I'd like first just to kind of echo a little bit what the President said. And it's not the first time it's been said at this podium by other people, including myself, about, how to get from here to over there where we all want to go. And I'm not talking about heaven either. This whole business of the zoning ordinance has been an issue with me for a long time. And it really needs to move beyond the political infighting. It's about really being competitive with the people that you're competing with the surrounding communities. So far as the zoning ordinance is concerned, it's been my opinion that it's just not competitive at all, particularly in areas where you suffering the greatest. And I'm always preaching about the value and benefits of light industrial development. They produce jobs, they're not a big drain on village services, and they produce the, per square foot, probably the greatest amount of tax base. And I haven't gone through it recently, but a number of years ago when I was battling with the last update of the zoning ordinance, is that our zoning ordinance relative to that particular district it's more, it's not at all competitive. I don't have to go through the details. It bears some research, but I compared it to all of our surrounding communities, and I went even and compared it to some of the highfalutin communities like Bloomfield Township and over in that district, mainly regarding the use of the land footprint versus how much land is really consumed to launch a particular project. The land is the only resource that we aren't going to really create any more of, so you got to make the best and most efficient use of what you have, and keep it in balance with the aesthetics and other things that you want to have also. So if you look at it, the whole thing, and if you guys are going to look at it from the standpoint of competitive, because that fits hand in glove in his comment about going out and marketing. He used the word, I forget, he used a different term, but it's really just down to how you go. You need to go and market yourself. But if you don't have a competitive product to market, people are going to say, oh, well, I can do better over here. Thanks for the information, and I won't waste my time over here because I'll spend my money what I can get the greatest return on my investment. So just keep that in mind. I really like the fact that you're being challenged to take this on and do something about this whole marketing business. But you gotta have a competitive product if you want to do that. It's no different than any other kind of business. Simple as that. And but the really reason I came tonight wasn't to talk about that. It just I'm interested in that. This is just a general question. I think it's for you, Jeff. With division of property, what are the restrictions regarding like dividing property in terms of how often can you divide property? It used to be something that says, well, under the state regulations, you can't divide it more than once in 10 years and so forth and so forth.
I'll be perfectly honest, George, I don't have it committed to memory, but the state does have a prescribed method for doing that for acreage property. And it really depends upon the history of the, to look at any one parcel, you're going to need to know the history. What was the parent parcel? Was it split prior? And then you can start generating child properties off of that. But yeah, really it gets handled on a case by case, parcel by parcel basis. It's difficult.
Because I was 3 years ago. I had a property division before you, and I sold off approximately 1/3 of the acreage that I had. And there wasn't an issue in doing that at the time, but I wasn't anticipating at the time is that, I might want to sell another chunk of it, and it's been fairly recent. And I was looking for some guidance on what the what my boundaries are, what my limitations are in terms of timing and how many times a piece of property could be divided and what's the minimum sizes and all that. Because when I discussed it with my surveyor, he said, well, I don't know, you better look into that before you move ahead.
Well, if it's related to the parcel on Victoria, I'd be more than happy to talk to you offline from the meeting.
Yeah, okay.
We can look
If you
into
get a chance
details.
to look at that and
Let me take
If
a
I
look
wanted
at it
to
and let me
divide again, what would
let me
you
pull a
say?
copy of the state land subdivision laws. I'll send you a copy of it so you have it as
Oh,
well.
okay.
That prescribes, it prescribes how many splits and what the resulting acreage can be. Also related to road access, you can't, there's a lot of different rules in there. You can't create a,
Yeah, I understand
not
about
perfect
ground
property.
and all this stuff, yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with you.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Public comment on non-agenda items?
I didn't think I was going to have anything tonight, but with the charge from President Dilbert, I'll offer a couple things to you guys. As far as the zoning ordinance goes, and in terms of the rewrite and the marketing and making ourselves more attractive to developers and other people who are looking to invest in the community, I would agree. When we look at the zoning ordinance, there are a number of things that are currently in there that are kind of outdated. When we look across our communities in Macomb County, we talk about industrial zone property. We have 27 different communities in the county, so we start putting a matrix together to see how many different types of industrial zoning there are. We got to about 36, we stopped counting. And what we really realized is there's really only 4 types of industrial uses that people are looking for. They're looking for light industrial, heavy industrial, they're looking for a flex type of space, and then a place where they can do R&D, which is kind of like your light industrial, but they might be doing some manufacturing in the back. If you look at our ordinance that we have, it's very similar to many of the others. It gets into all of these rules about what you can do on this site, what you can't do on that site. And at the end of the day, I would challenge anybody to go to any of our communities and look at the end result is the same, but it's the process that people need to go through. As we look at updating ordinances, Chris, I think what the county can offer, at least from the planning side, is we can do a walkthrough of the zone, of section 515, which is the zoning ordinance, and do that in conjunction and try to make it lockstep with what's happening with enforcement in terms of looking at what needs to be updated in some of our districts, but then looking at it at a larger scope. Do any of these things tie to other ordinances? Because generally, your other word, the sidewalk ordinance or animal control, some of those have some land use and planning things. Some of them may be redundant if they're already covered properly in the zoning. So we might be able to streamline some things or make some suggestions to those other external ordinances that council then could take, some type of action on. But my recommendation in terms of looking at the zoning ordinance, since if we put together a contract saying we're going to move forward and do that, would be to tackle a couple of issues that have come before at least this planning commission in the last year and a half. That would be the industrial ordinances and then also the commercial ordinance, because there's been a lot of issues on Gratiot Avenue in terms of people not being compliant, but being in compliance with the existing zoning. But there's also the issue of looking at the zoning ordinance, say, does this really fit this area that we're trying to cast in this manner? If we look at the Gratiot Avenue corridor, we're looking at a use that's primarily commercial. But we have a lot of uses along there that have been grandfathered in. They're on very small lots. And for them to transition into the type of use we'd like to see there, in most cases, there's not enough property for them to do it because of the setbacks required by MDOT from the road. A lot of people who are operating businesses there right now are in the right of way of Gratiot. But if the same person says, I want to sell this and become compliant, the person who's looking to purchase that property may not be able to even fit a desirable use or a permitted use there. So I think one of the things we want to look at if we're looking at zoning is how do we simplify the opportunity for people to assemble property for larger uses within the village, we also take a look at the workflow, how things from the permitting process come through Lori's office at building and come to us. Are there things that we can streamline it? One of the things, when people are looking to make an investment in the community, we had Dollar General come in here. One of their first concerns was how long will this process take? We tried to guarantee them a certain amount of time, but if we can look at our workflow and say, within 90 days of an approval, you should be able to move through planning commission, get to these things, and give people some guarantees, because we streamlined the process, we've identified everything that they need, we've made the zoning easier to comply with. Those are things that make your community more marketable and more palatable to people who are coming out and doing site selectors who are looking for larger chain companies and stuff like that. At the county, we're doing a study on industrial zoning. Within the next 6 months, we are going to have a model ordinance that we're going to make available to any of our communities that wish to adopt it. We try to make it the most updated and latest terms and methods for zoning industrial property, but then also looking at the workflow in terms of giving tips in terms of streamlining the process of getting someone through, get the site plan approved, and get something built. That's something we can definitely offer to this group. On just the topic of general marketing and that, what we've been able to offer, and we do this for all of our communities, the county has a pretty good electronic footprint in terms of press releases, things we put out on blogs, things that go out to other groups, other partner groups and stuff of interest. If there's an event that's going on in a community, or a community's hosting an open house, or you're looking for investors to come in and take a look at properties, that's something that the county can easily assist us with in terms of getting the word out, as opposed to just making that one call to the paper. We can put these things out, and depending upon the press releases they go out, sometimes they get picked up by the Free Press or other outlets like that. So we have that at our disposal. The question, I guess, is crafting the message. If it's the Parks and Rec Commission, we would be hoping the Parks and Rec Commission would be providing information on programming and events and stuff that they have. If they bring that to either the Planning Commission or a group that is designed to cull all that information together, we can definitely turn that over to the county and get that information out to people. I think the biggest thing is coming up with what are those elements. You guys have great events, you guys have great festivals, that run throughout the summer. So, those are all things to promote. When it comes to the zoning ordinance, and when we adopt those, if you were to adopt those things, those are good things to put a press release out on. New Haven is updating their zoning ordinance, making, commercial and other things, commercial and residential easier to build, or easier to fast track those types of projects. So there are resources that we can offer. I think that if we were going to go through the zoning ordinance, I think we want to break that down, take it a couple sections at a time. But definitely, if you already have worked through it, there are elements, because I have found notes from the past planner on certain sections where he had made recommendations. One of the ones was industrial. And in our industrial zoning, we are basically stating that industrial property should have 350 feet of frontage on the front end. There's not a piece of parcel zoned industrial in the village right now, I think, that meets that requirement. And I think the idea was, well, you'd have larger lots along 26 Mile or some of those places, but they're all small lots that have been carved up. So we've been issuing variances for that. There's also the idea of mixed use in industrial. Our industrial states very specifically the uses that you can have in there. There is a little clause that says, and what other uses the planning commission deems permissible or complementary to that area. But we're seeing other communities like Clinton Township, Chesterfield, where they have industrial property that's sitting vacant, where they're allowing other uses to come in, other uses being commercial uses, being the athletics, bounce house, just some of those indoor play areas, or other types of maybe retail sales that need a larger footprint. So this is something we can consider. We'll look at what our ordinance and bring it up to date. Would offer that.
Would that go for the school district as well? well, funneling those press releases through the county?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the school district has information they want to get out to the public on a program or anything that's benefiting our residents, because I mean, with the school district, you're talking beyond the village limits at that point too, and that gets into the greater population, so absolutely.
Well, it's
Yeah.
great stuff coming out
Yeah.
there, so it's.
Maria Zaris on our staff is in charge of marketing and communications. Works with the executive's office. They meet basically every second Tuesday, and they call these items together. We work with other departments, and department heads to bring their stories together and try to get all this stuff out in the media. So definitely going to be a resource that we can tap into.
I think that'd be really beneficial, and there's, obviously, like you said, there's a lot going on in the village. Even, with Lombardo, and then having Clearview Homes that we just, approved the sale of 47 acres, and them coming here. That needs to be something I think would be beneficial to broadcast out, hey, there's a lot of homes coming to New Haven.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys know you've opened up X amount of lots that are going to be built, I mean, that's a press release right there. New Haven is growing, But I was just going to say, I don't know, I don't necessarily come away with an action item from this meeting in terms of the zoning stuff, but I think if we can do some research, if you can find a copy of that, that'd be a great start.
I wasn't very deep in tossing the things in the boxes, but it's all there.
Okay. That would probably be a great start. Otherwise, I think we'd probably want to go, what I could offer is maybe next month we go through the ordinance, not go through piece by piece, but just section by section and prioritize the sections. I would think that our residential is probably very solid, either our commercial, our industrial, our light industrial, our office residential. There's a couple of districts we may want to take a look at.
There was a mixed use.
There is a mixed use. I think there was, and then I think that with the last master plan, I think we took some of the recommendations for that. And we did recommend some little tweaks to the existing zoning ordinance to make that happen. One was to increase population density, the square footage of people you could put downtown, to go to a third, suggested 2 or 3 story type of building being available there. And then I think we made some changes to multifamily elsewhere in the township. I think it was on Roselle Road, there was a large section that was zoned multifamily, converted that back, I believe, to light industrial, as to try to target any other multifamily development to the downtown area. So we made a couple little tweaks, but there's definitely items that could be more broadly updated in the zoning.
Exciting stuff.
Any more comments, concerns? Hearing none, that completes the planning report. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support? Support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Thank you.
you.